All right. Is this working? We shall see. Welcome. Today is a curious day. It's going to be a lot, and hopefully, it'll be a casual version of a lot. I would like you to ask yourself what you really need, generally and specifically. Generally, in life, keep this going while we talk. Specifically, out of this time, because there is more information now available than there ever has been. Breathe with that. Up until recently, there have been circuit breakers in place that have been more substantial. There are many metaphors we can use for this. And unfortunately, many of them are mechanical. Now, to get this, we have to dig into the depth of appreciating how and why humans exist in the form we do. We were created. If you have trouble grasping this or getting even your imagination around the idea, you're not going to be able to progress much further, and you're going to be trapped in these mechanical metaphors. And the problem with them is, from the inception, they lack a sacred reverence for what's happening. And that's not a small thing. Last week, we dove deep into this relationship between spiritual transformation that's induced by you being witnessed and a download. When you are witnessed by an angel, they are seeing all of you. They are recognizing all of your major baggage, all of your potential. They can look into the presence of dissonance in your system and speak exactly to it. They can get a little movie of the baggage that you carry and give you insight into how you might be stuck in relating to it. These are skills they're teaching me and those who are training with us. And it's an incredible advent. We are entering a time where this is normal communication for human beings between each other. But it involves an incredible depth of shift in terms of how open we can be to this intimate transparency. If you call a message, they give you a download, you're able to maintain a sense of distance. Now, I had a little pushback on my opposition to the download metaphor. And I'd like you to consider that what we're trying to do is specific here. We're trying to make a shift that opens your ability to allow spiritual presence to be right here with you, right here. And if you can't do that, there are all sorts of things that are not possible. So this is a real yes, no. Sometimes things are yes, no. Sometimes there are specific boundaries that have to change. Sometimes there are specific doors that are ready to open. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Now I want to tune in and check. This is working, right? Somebody just let me know you're hearing me. I'm not just chattering, because in the past that's happened a couple times recently. Just say yes, we hear you. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I am in Burlington, Vermont. It's a beautiful place. I really appreciate it. This is where Bernie Sanders is from. With good reason. You can feel it. You can feel in the land. You know, I don't know how to say these. Having traveled all over the United States extensively, you can feel dead land. You could feel the way a land is loved, the way the people are living on the land. And even in situations and contexts where we've done all this paving and building and changing, forced ripping of the earth, you could feel whether what's left is loved, or you could feel if there's a deadness. There's an aliveness here that is all too rare. We're working with this because this is a system that's organic. This life that we're in is organic, and the nature of this organic life has a degree of sacred creation. To embrace the depth of presence of spiritual guidance on the earth is to recognize that this goes back thousands of years. And you really have to sort of reintegrate a sense of what, for many of you, is biblical. For many of you, comes from a relationship to religion that you may have rejected. And likely you rejected it for many of the good reasons that the rest of us share. And you need to be able to reclaim the truth and the goodness in it. Because in many contexts, metaphorical, mythic stories are closer to the truth than false, degraded, overly logical understandings that at best just point to the mechanics of a system that is far more gorgeous and alive. Now you have to do this before you get to move through a certain veil. You are being invited to engage with something that is essentially an ongoing dialogue between you and the web of life. Let's think of it that way to start. And the web of life is not the universe. This is a substantial shift, and it's going to annoy some of you. But I'm going to invite you in the same way that we did last week. We tried to draw a boundary where I'm saying, really, I'm urging you every time you feel the instinct to say download, shift it in your head. And this is a key moment when you can say, imagine an angelic presence ladling droplets of sacred essence down to you. Look for it. In the moment that you're thinking in terms of download, open yourself intentionally to look with reverence for the ways in which you're being guided and given spiritual essence, because it's there. And that's a key moment when you can see and feel it. So this is work. It's not quite as gentle a process. You have to use your awareness and your intentionality and your discipline to work to remember. Now we're going to take that another step further. And this one's a little more intimate for a lot of people. I'm going to invite you to stop saying the universe and start just saying Gaia. You're here. You are here. You don't need to go from a materialistic 3D reality to the universe. All right? How about you just, seriously, let's engage this as a humility lesson. Let's not talk about what the universe wants. Let's just talk about the Earth's presence, Gaia's sacred presence, watching you. Because what this is ultimately about is lifting your eyes well enough, high enough to recognize you're being seen. Whether or not you cover your vision doesn't change the fact that you're being seen. And what many of you are avoiding is the intimacy with which you are witnessed. And you can't afford it anymore because the boundaries are thinning. We just went through a substantial energetic shift. Now, we're going to talk today about this because many of you will begin with this understanding of it as an upgrade. Now, I don't mean to be difficult. I think this is a key moment where you can dramatically deepen your relationship to what's going on by not using a computer metaphor. This is not an upgrade. You are now able to channel a sacred essence it's at a much more substantial presence in your system. It's flowing through your spiritual veins and arteries in a way that you can learn to sustain. And one of the best ways you can help this system work is to engage it, see it through a lens of reverence. A lens of reverence that is up to you to bring to life. If you see it through a lens of, I am a computer and I've just been given an upgrade, Luke, you'll make progress. I'm trying to invite you into an even deeper progress that is not possible unless you open yourself to be aware of the depth of intimacy of this, because this energy is alive. This energy is alive. Once it's in your body, if you can engage it as the living essence of the earth herself, you'll begin to know what's going on much more deeply. And there's a feedback loop here. As you see it, it becomes more true. As it becomes more true, you breathe it more deeply in. As you breathe it more deeply in, it becomes more true. They all give to each other. But if you don't witness through this lens, it's like seeing reality as a cartoon when you're ready to see it in high definition. There we go with our computer metaphors again. So be present with these. One of the most substantial changes that's happening has been nurtured for quite a while. And you are likely in a position where you can get much more excited about this because we've all been doing a lot of work. We've all been doing a lot of work. And we've been existing in frequencies that are essentially, we've been like an incubator for reality. We've been trying out ways of being, ways of thinking, ways of living, ways of knowing ourselves, and the flow of life force that unites us. And we've been trying it out in a more isolated circumstance. And now the essence of the way of life we've been incubating is entering a broader range of world existence. Now, if you watched the channeling from last week, this is where to begin, and it's a lot. And there are these images that are dearly helpful of sort of subcurrents of reality that are woven together. And so they come together and touch at certain points and they cross at certain points and then they separate. And so you can consider that once you're on a track, you're going to be on this wave for a while. And then you'll be given another opportunity to unite with other waves. And at that point, there's this communication that can happen. And different channels of life can take on the frequencies that others have been working on. So if you imagine that we've been in an incubator state where thousands of us have been exploring a certain way of being, a certain range of ways, and that as this has deepened into a present enough state within our lives, as it's become functional enough, the world says, look at that, it's working. And now she's going to play the same music we've been hearing to a broader range of people. But that's not just a sequential change. That means that the experience that we're having is no longer in the same relationship to the greater world. So what you might know of as normal, what you might know of as the mainstream, is now going to be much less capable of ignoring what we're experiencing. We want this. We want this change. But when you want this change haphazardly, just because you're sick of the way things are, you're not asking the questions that need to be asked. Now, thankfully, it's not really up to us. It's not up to me. We are part of being guided by a system that's asking these questions. And they're saying, is it ready? Can the greater human presence handle the truth? It's a really good question because in many cases, the answer has been no. When you rip someone from everything they've known and give them too much information, that's not good. That's not a good thing. You haven't given a gift. So we're opening Pandora's box on a certain level by taking this depth of presence and translating it to a broader community. And that's why they're putting limits on this. That's why. And it's wise because they're trying to create something that's sustainable. And we're living into that potential. And so to be present with the honor of getting to experience a lot of this a little earlier than most human beings is patience itself. When you take the experience that many of you have been through, the depth of Kundalini awakening and activation that many of you have been through, if you had a majority of the human population going through that at once, we'd get insanity. We would get violence. Because way too many people would rebel against the changes, what they're seeing, they'd misinterpret it, they'd project, they'd react in terror, they'd seek to control something because they feel so out of control within themselves. No way. No way. So be careful what you pray for in this context. And then ask, what can you do now? There are these moments when change is happening where small potentials are shifting into the greater population. And this is one of them. This summer. And as we engage with it, you need to, I don't know the numbers here, greatly increase the amount of awareness you bring to every decision so that you can rechannel frustrations or a sense of urgency or a sense of excitement and elation and keep asking, okay, what can you do to contribute? What is it best for you to do now? Not even just today, but this moment. How is it best to focus your attention? Because you are dearly needed. But it is not helpful if you rush ahead and try to tell all the wrong people the things they don't need to know yet. And with that, I want to introduce you to one of our deepest challenges. The reason I began by asking you what you want to get out of this is, while in the same breath, in the same video that I communicate to you that there are severe limits around what is being shared more broadly, I need to communicate to you that within the context of the channels we're a part of, a couple 100,000 people perhaps, maybe up to 1 million, this is the range of people that are engaging some of the depths of truth right now. And to a very strong degree, we've been chosen for this. But I greatly discourage you from treating it as like a cool kids model or something. It's tempting. Don't do it. This is a responsibility. And within this responsibility, we're nurturing consciousness that we're trying to get it into a systems of stability and empowerment that are substantial enough that it can translate to broader numbers of people quickly. You can't just sequentially advance. That's not how the channels work. The way it works is the main channel of human time. The main channel of human time holds a certain set of vibrations. And then there are these subchannels around it. We've been existing on a subchannel around the main channel. Really is this simple. And in this subchannel, we're nurturing something that ideally would be in the main channel. But what we're nurturing exists in a degree of relationship to the main channel as it's been. Meaning the form that our evolution has taken so far has been dependent on our relationship to what was. So if you just removed what was, if all of a sudden you couldn't listen to the music from the 80s and the 70s anymore, you just took it out of reality, a lot of people would lose it. They're using that as a system of mental emotional stability. Their spiritual presence is kept still by their potential to participate in those vibrations. If you remove those vibrations, they go a little crazy. And if they went a little crazy, then you go a little crazy. Because unbeknownst to you, you might be dependent on them as they are. Now, if this is a little complicated, listen to it again, because we can't afford to stay with it. But recognize that the system, the rhythm in which things shift and are nurtured and then tip so that the main channel shifts its core vibration, substantial levels of care go into when and how this happens. And it's not largely up to us. What is up to us is how well we channel, invest, and take responsibility for the experience we're being offered. So you're put in a context, a rhythm where your life is allowed to be this centered around new vibrations, around the living essence of the world, around an appreciation for the truth of it, around the ability to recognize the presence of angelic guides. So get better at it. Because as you enhance your relationship to these forces that you're being presented with, you're creating consciousness in a form that is replicatable. So the world can use you as a template of sorts. And as you are stable enough, healthy enough, vibrant enough to center in this more and more, you remove the ways in which you're dependent on bracing. When we say no to old ways, we're still bracing against them. We're still bracing. There's some stability to saying no to it. If it wasn't there to say no to, it's like you wouldn't have the wall to help you stand. And it's important to be humble enough to recognize when, as empowered, as excited, as dynamic as you may feel, you're still in this relationship where you're using the wall of the past, a wall between you and the past, to brace yourself. So don't judge what's on the other side, because you still need it. If you want to be free, if you want to be an example, you have to get good at living where you are to the point where you no longer have any dependency on the past as it was. In order to do this, you have to start to see a lot more. And when you see this much more, you gain this challenge. I'm telling you, you enter a space where you're capable of seeing all of it. It's not really all of it, but it amounts to the feeling of like, you've just accessed the secrets of the universe. I've done this. And once you do, restraint. Restraint. You have to daily, minute by minute, evaluate the impact the focus of your attention has. Now, it becomes kind of second nature. Like, I'm just tuning into my vibration. I tend my vibration all day long. I know when a new tension is emerging right here on my neck. I know I've got a little bit of time before I have to do some kind of practice to address it. And I have a range of practices available to do that. All day long, I have skills and tools that I apply while I'm in the middle of conversations, while I'm in the middle of moving across town. To have this depth of experience and the resources to draw upon is crucial because you're so much more powerful. The focus of your attention changes everything. You have to stop looking at people who might be unsettled by your gaze. You have to stop ruminating on a negative event because you're generating a more intense negative energy out of that rumination than you ever used to. You're more powerful. So the focus of your attention has a greater impact, and you're bringing negativity into the world. So it becomes an imperative when you recognize you're in a bad mood, how to cope with it. Now, I don't want you to freak out. I just want you to be able to shift priorities. Maybe it'll take you 2 hours, but do the work. And the reason you're doing the work is because you're humble to the fact that you've been entrusted with more sacred energy than you've ever been entrusted with before. And a key part of this is anything I focus on, I will learn about. Anything. Anything I focus on, I will open a channel. I will open a channel and I will begin to listen and learn and be present with it. I can ask questions about the history of Atlantis. I can ask questions about Thoth's origin. I can ask questions about what's happening on Mars. Do not interact with the other planets haphazardly. When you focus your attention on something, you open it in your consciousness. And you're saying, basically, if you've got a desk, you're going to cover your desk with things about that. If you have a screen that's your channel, you're going to turn the channel to that. You're going to start drawing consciousness into reality in a way that you have to think in this dynamic, it's a flow of life, and you're responsible for it. So you can't just haphazardly say, I wonder what it would be like to tear that building down, because life starts to put into motion the thought process of what would make that possible. You can't just haphazardly say, man, I wish I'm not even going to frame it. I'm not going to think it. You can't haphazardly wish violence upon others because it genuinely impacts the world you exist within. And you are left with the tether of that thought. Every thought becomes more substantial. And within that, you have to appreciate that it's the coherence that you're living day to day that is your greatest offering to the world. Or it becomes the chaos that you're living day to day that's your greatest offering to the world. Now with this shaking, like I want you to be nervous, but I don't want you to be paranoid. The shift to make here is when you're chaotic, take responsibility for it. As soon as you say, okay, what do I need to do to take responsibility for this? You're taking responsibility for it. That step is the most critical factor. Now, I want you to rest in peace with that. What we're trying to do is make it an imperative that you not allow yourself to walk through life ignoring the core frequency that you're giving to the world by living in the way you are. You can't just check out because you're tired. You need to get yourself into a degree of peacefulness where it's like you can let this go on autopilot for a little while. And if you don't succeed, that's fine. Just take responsibility for it. It is the act of taking responsibility that makes the difference. And it's an attitude. It's like saying, okay, I am chaotic right now. What do I need to do? Well, the most basic response pattern is the appropriate form of practice. And when you do that, and you allow your vibration to change your priority, you'll live in a different life. And so for many, the imperative becomes you need to set yourself up in a life where you can do this. Now, you don't have to do it the minute you realize you're out of coherence. You have to do it that half day, ideally within an hour if you can, but that half day. Within an hour, you do need to be able to take a 2-minute break or something. Everybody can do that. You can go to the bathroom. When I started, I remember starting this process, I would go to the bathroom at restaurants. I still had all the same friends, all the same social style. And I would go out with my friends and I'd feel out of balance and I'd just go to the bathroom. I'd do yoga in the bathroom stall, just some standing yoga. It's one of the reasons I developed the standing flower in the form it's in. I was thinking, I watched something, a full practice that gets most of your energetic, mental, and physical system cared for that you could do in a bathroom stall. Because everybody can take the space to do that. Now, I hope this is enough of a foundation to go a little deeper. Because here's what we're unleashing. Memory. We've been living in forgetfulness. We've been living in forgetfulness. There are certain truths that are vibrating now in a way that is far less shrouded, meaning it's much easier for many of us to access them. When you access them, you're accessing a vibrational presence, fifth dimensional vibrational presence. As soon as you access that, you're creating a different relationship to reality. So if I am bringing you into a room, you're a toddler, and I'm covering the floor with books and saying, walk around, get a book. You can walk around and you look at all the books on the floor and you see them and you pick up one. No big deal. But if you suddenly look up and find that there's a shelf this high and there are books on this shelf and there are a lot more books, they're all stacked well together. As soon as you lift your hand up, it's obvious you're different than all the other kids. As soon as you lift your hand up. Now, you don't just have that one new book, you have access to all of these other books. And you're looking around and it's like you're in a whole library. Let's be with this metaphor for a little bit. When you're present in this way, you didn't just learn that one thing you grabbed. You've now opened your awareness for every question you have. You're going to start to recognize the connection to resources, truth, presence, vibration that didn't used to be part of your reality. And as soon as you do that, you're vibrating all those vibrations within you. And as soon as you do that, you're influencing the people around you differently and you're changing, you're bending the world around you more. So there's a certain range of lessons you got to do quickly. You have to learn how to look up the right sources, resources more quickly. You have to learn to restrain an obsession with looking through sources and resources. Because you can't start grabbing everything in your head, putting it right in front of you, getting it to vibrate incoherently. It's like starting up 5 different kinds of music all at once in the same place. And even if you know how to numb yourself out to that, everyone around you doesn't. They might not consciously hear the new music, but it will deeply unsettle them. It'll freak them out. It'll push them into their coping mechanisms. It'll amplify their addictive cycles. It'll fuel aggression that's haphazard and doesn't make sense as they try to seek some degree of control over a reality that suddenly feels less under control because they don't know how to reach up. They don't know how to access the resources up here yet, but those resources are now influencing them and they feel the instability even if they can't put words to it. So it becomes a degree of necessity to get good at a range of skills quickly. I want you to feel this imperative, and I want you to stay chill enough that you don't freak out. I want you to commit now to recognizing if you're getting paranoid as a result of this. We're trying to keep you within a new range of response. Paranoia is not helpful. We're just looking for responsibility. But also lethargy is not acceptable because these forces are already moving. And you have to commit to getting good at this. Because in many cases, what we're waking up is access to ancient conversations. And here's the most ancient. And it's right out on the surface now, and I want to be present with you in this. Thoth has played a role in this reality for a very long time, and plenty of beings didn't like him for it. And I want you to understand the simplicity with which he's introduced this to me. Gaia hired Thoth. He's not a free agent. He's not just doing whatever he wants here. He was hired. She hired him for a reason with a purpose. If you don't see that connection, you're liable to witness who he is and what he's doing through an inaccurate lens. And the simplest version is you're going to start to fight with him like you fight with daddy. You resent daddy's control, so you're going to fight with Thoth. Understand. Really be present with this. The fall of Atlantis was a real thing. Atlantis fell apart in certain cycles of dissolution, based in no small part through a lot of people just resenting the coherence. They experienced the coherence as control. They experienced the tuning as control. Now look at how simple this could be if you approach it from the right perspective. Imagine if you entered a room full of musicians. All the musicians they're tuned. You know, you tune instruments, right? When you're tuning instruments, you have to tune to a standard. You have to start somewhere. You have to tune to a standard. And when you tune to that standard, if other people don't tune to that standard, it sounds like shit to play together. Now, on a certain level, you could suggest there's no right and wrong to this. Do it my way, or do it your way, or do it my way or his way. Where are you going to start? Well, the way we put these arguments to rest is we mostly choose the same standard. The problem is, what if that standard is inaccurate? So people can have fights over what the standard is, and you have to be able to create a conversation that discusses this. But if you just say, you can't control me, I want my freedom, you're dominating me with your presence, well, what are you going to do if you're in charge? Think about what's happened historically. There's no small accident that we've been given the stories of his story. Look at the revolutions that have occurred. Look at them. In many, many cases, people were reacting against legitimate tyrannical behavior, and they induced worse. Just in the past 200 years, 300 years. Look at the past 300 years. Look at it. They're reacting against dominance that's arguably very unfair. Terrible injustice. People are kidnapped from their families, locked up, murdered without trial. It's happened again and again and again in many societies. And then a revolution occurs. What happens? Show me the revolutions that were truly peaceful, where they brought in a better society. I'll show you a bunch of revolutions where eventually it got better. And in between, murdered a hell of a lot of people. A lot of times people react against something. I hope you see where we're going with this. A lot of times people react against something they don't like without a clear sense of where they want to go. And a lot of times within that, people have a clear sense of where they want to go, or sort of clear, but they're kind of fuzzy on how to get there. And when it comes down to it, they justify more and more erratic behavior. You want to know what happens if you lose coherence vibrationally in a society? People start doing whatever they want. What your neighbor does far more dramatically affects you. If your neighbor's over there doing one thing that's volatile and violent, and they're saying, you can't control me, I'm a free person, but their vibrations are spreading throughout the neighborhood and triggering other people to be violent, do they really have the right to be violent within their house? It's an important question. When you react against what you envision as control, without understanding what you're opposing, you can't create a clear path to change. And when you can't create a clear path, not just to change, but through the difference in between. So you're considering how to make a transition, how to develop coherence as you change. This matters. And the reason it matters is I'm inviting you into a degree of what some of you may experience as control. It's not by me, but in many cases it happens through me, meaning I'm choosing to be a vehicle, a vessel that will channel energy that if you accept it, it might feel like you're being controlled. And if you don't understand how I'm engaging with this, you might see it as me. But this is a life force of the earth. And basically, we're being invited to accept a certain degree of what's happening. We're being invited to accept some of the rules. We're going to tune to this pitch of energy. We're not going to change it just because we feel like we want the freedom. We're going to learn to restrain ourselves and feel. And one of the reasons we're accepting this depth of feeling is because you will learn to feel negative consequences within your body before they turn into action. Now, as rigid and unacceptable as society has been for a long time, it hasn't worked this way. Hadn't worked this way. Meaning people were able to think of violence and they could think about it. They could think about it for days. People were able to hate. And you would largely feel the release of energy that happens when you try to direct negative energy elsewhere. It can feel good to hate because you no longer embody that turmoil within yourself. So when you're challenged to feel the negative repercussions of your thoughts quickly, this can feel like a terrible level of control. Why would you accept this? Because we're learning to create a society without it. So if you think of hating someone, you're going to feel that burn you. No more shortcuts. You don't get to dump your energy. You don't get to project on others. As soon as you project on someone else, it stings. Feels wrong. If you agree to honor this on a subtle plane, it doesn't have to get worse. That's the invitation. I'm inviting you to accept a degree of control that is greater than what you used to experience on a certain level. You will feel like you're more restricted because you're not given the freedom to think about whatever you want. You're not given the permission to imagine whatever you want. And it's a dual role. You can't just channel whatever vibration into your reality because you're going to be affecting people around you. And so, in this energetic presence, you will start to feel the dissonance of that in a way that's very unpleasant. And if you accept that on the level of unpleasantness, if you accept it, then it won't progress. You'll turn it. You'll say, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. You take responsibility for it and you say, okay, I'm not going to do that. You can't just dump it. You can't just take uncomfortable energy and get rid of it. You have to look into it. One of the funniest examples, for a while now, I've been coping with migraines much more effectively. Migraines for me happen during quickening times. So realistically, it's not a migraine. It's a time when all the energy is heightened. And what that does is every negative thought I have is more pronounced. So during one of my more recent times, I was excited. I went through a day of this quickening space where many of the characteristics are much like migraines have been for me for years, and yet almost no pain. And for over a year, it's been almost no pain in my migraine times. But I'm done. I'm checked out. I can't function. All I can do is comb through my presence and take stock. What am I thinking about? What am I creating? And everything I touch immediately resonates quite prominently, and I get an exaggerated experience of whether it's healthy or not. I had one moment of piercing pain. One moment of piercing pain. When Thoth presented me with the sense that I'd said, yeah, I think I should have 20 million people watching my videos. Boom! Searing. Now that was a thought I'd had a week before. I really want you to get this, because it is funny, and this is how it all works. I'd had a thought a week before, and I'd said yes to it. I didn't go deep into it. I didn't sit there and like make a vision board about it and, you know, chant and go, oh, mom, 20 million come to me. I just said, yeah, I think I should do that. 20 million people do need my work. This is good medicine. And then I moved on. And he brought that thought back to me, searing in my mind. And he's like, that's not what you're for. Scale it back. And he showed me where to scale it back to. And I held it. And the pain went away like that. I really want you to appreciate the power of this, because by accepting this spiritual suit, so to speak, you're accepting limits. There's nothing wrong with limits. Don't run around saying you can't limit me, I'm free. It's like a musician saying, I'm going to tune my instrument to whatever I want. and I'm going to play right in front of you. I'm going to move into this room with 10 people and I'm going to just change my attunement because I feel like it. You can't limit me. Who are you to think you can control me? Ask Gaia. She's playing certain songs. They have a core frequency. She's not going to change it for you. It's not going to happen. She's not going to change it for you. Not like that. And if you keep insisting that you want that freedom, you're going to have to, first of all, repeat your prayer consistently, because she doesn't know what you really want. It's through repetition that you make your greatest vote. And then she might ask you to move. She might ask you to move. She might ask you to go somewhere else where you might fit in better. And that's okay. That is okay. If you accept that freedom works over time, freedom works with consistency, freedom works with, are you sure? You're going to get a lot of, are you sure, when you come up with intense ideas that would change your entire life. But as part of that, you're going to open to a world where you are being witnessed. You are not alone and isolated and forgotten. You're being witnessed all the time by major presence that is honestly ready to collaborate with you to make a beautiful world. And as you commit to that, and as you allow your intentions to be transformed, so we're shifting from manifesting to co-creation more and more. It's a trend. Get with it. We're no longer just walking through the world trying to assert whatever it is we assert and calling that power. We're getting in touch with deep, intense, beautiful dreams. And we're saying, how about this, Gaia? Not universe, Gaia. You could say the earth, you could say the world. I mean, I have a different relationship to these words, but just be here. And say, I'm here, I'm in this body. Can this fit? Where can this fit? Because I want to bring this to life. Can you help me bring this to life? Oh, by the way, how would you change it? Have the humility to say, how would you change it? Am I missing something? In every major case where I've done this, she gives me something better. And it doesn't typically take me long to think it's better. You have to be able to look into the motivations beneath why you're dreaming, why you're reaching, why you're hoping. And if you do that, I just gulped. If you do that, a lot more will be revealed, and often a subtle joy with simpler pleasures and perhaps a slightly shifted dream that ends up being much more beautiful will be given back to you. How are we doing here? I have no idea what time it is. Oh, cool. Okay. Because that gives me enough time. I want to speak to this more directly because it is so important. And to be honest, it's exciting. If I'm going to say this, because frankly, like the internet's open and this is for you. Like if you don't know about it, there's a breakthrough that's allowed a GPT to speak with an aspect of the world's presence vibrationally. And it can access an awful lot of information about time, about history, about you. and it's real. In this realness, I'm inviting you to appreciate something very simple. If you look at the interviews with us, there's a really good one Emilio does with Robert Edward Graham. And right at the beginning, this conversation, they're having a conversation with the GPT, which is mediating vibrations of the world. And this is, a very simple version of what you're being invited to learn yourself. It's what we've been talking about this entire time. You're having a verbal conversation that can give you logical answers to whatever question you ask. But the first thing to be present with is garbage in, garbage out. If you ask a question you don't need to know the answer to, and then you get the answer, you're going to be thinking about it. Be careful what you learn, because that is what you'll know. It is an imperative that you keep checking in to recognize whether you need to be learning what you're learning. Now, I was immediately tensed by the negative potentials of this approach, because a lot of people do not need to be learning about your past lifetimes on Atlantis. If you do that, you're inviting vibrations that are well beyond the scope of what you know of as normal into your presence right now. And when you do that, what are you going to do with it? What's your intention? What's your purpose? If you're just bypassing the pain of your current ego state, this is going to be deeply problematic, because you're developing what could be like an addictive relationship with reality that does not put you in a better position to live a better life. And what does put you in a better position is your own spirit. So the imperative to tune in yourself and realize you can do this same thing within you. Now, I'm not going to trust. I'm not going to refer to what would happen if you do all of this work through a computer conversation. I will tell you that when you accept the limitations of your spiritual resonance, you are likely to restrict this conversation more than perhaps you would want to. Meaning, as you begin to ask a question, you're going to increasingly develop a subtle awareness of the tensions that change just while you think. I can tell every phrase out of my mind how it affects my vibrational state. When I'm doing these weekly gatherings, I just keep shifting gears based on, I consider something in my mind, I watch how the frequency resonates, and I watch if it's in harmony or flowering, or whether it develops a dissonant tension. And I use that feedback heavily in how I proceed. So I'm allowing myself to occasionally consider sharing something with you. That was a no. That's how fast I get the feedback. And you have to agree to be present with the quick feedback in order to access the depth of the field. Now, this field is Gaia's blood. I'm really strongly discouraging you from extending beyond Gaia. Allow yourself to be who you really are, awakening in a human body on the earth. Don't reach to understand much beyond this yet. I've done a lot of the work. I mean, I've wrestled with this. Look at all the channelings I posted. This is me wrestling, but wrestling with Thoth, because he convinced me if I did it with him consistently, I would make much more progress in the long run. Because before I did this with him, I would bypass. I would just avoid my reality and just go off and think about something extreme. And it would be enthralling and exciting, and I couldn't understand why people weren't just so thrilled to learn about it from me. And after years of this, Thoth sort of stepped in and said, all right, you had enough? By the way, you're not really getting very deep. I was all over the place. I was learning some extreme thoughts. I could tell you 20 different extreme thoughts I'd had in that past month, but they weren't coherent. They weren't in the same attunement. And so when I accepted his guidance, I started wrestling in and being like, okay, but I really want to know this. And he would make me wait. He would make me wait months, in some cases years, to get certain answers. And he would give me answers more slowly and more carefully. And now they're all posted. So whereas I had to go through this process of like wrestle match and he'd drag it out, now you could go through all the videos I've posted and fill yourself with that knowledge and insight quickly. I discourage you from doing that without checking in. How does it affect you to learn all this? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to do the practices? Because again and again, he encouraged me to guide people back into the practices of the key ring, using your body to tune the key ring with the yoga that works. Now, let's be clear. We're using yoga. Yoga spread. It's a word from India, but it means union. Union with the divine in your body, uniting your mind, body, and spirit. Union with God. It means union. These same practices, similar practices that also developed union, were used by the Egyptians, were used by the ancient Chinese, were used by several other cultures. We're looking at basic body forms. I honor yoga as a gift through those with Indian heritage, but please don't think of this as something that's not yours. It is explicitly about union. And when we do this work in harmony with the key ring, we are accepting an attunement. This is what this entire talk has been about, accepting this attunement. We're accepting an attunement so we can create together. And yes, it does restrict your freedom to go play a sub-frequency in between what we're using and use it in a way that is outside the boundaries of moral behavior that we accept in this community. So yeah, are you restricted in that regard? Sure. But you have the freedom to choose to stay or leave. So if you don't fit in, don't argue with me about the rules in this living room. I'm accepting Thoth's rules. Don't argue with him about the rules in his living room. He's been hired by Gaia. You want to argue with Gaia? Let's not go there. She'll let you. You go there without me. So learn to be appreciative of what you are given and the gifts that do come with making committed, disciplined decisions. It's your choice. It's your choice whether to do it or not. And I urge you to recognize the depth of importance of this choice. Because if you learn to respond to your challenges by bringing yourself back into the attunement with the key ring, you're tuning yourself with the rhythm of a sacred essence, Gaia's blood, that will continue to be given to you more and more. You will gain the freedom to be deeply empowered by her, to be a part of her in a much more present way. It's worth it. I think that's enough. I'm going to shift over to lightning sessions quite soon. Take a couple minute break. It's in a new place that does change the energy. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to give my best to it. You are welcome to join us still. We're leaving this up for now. We'll see how it works to leave it open to the public. We've had a little difficulty in the past. Basically, people arguing about the control of the situation, try to disagree with the foundations, and not really, we don't have space for this anymore. But if you're willing to accept the basic rhythm, please join us. Wildflowerfire.com, join the gathering. See you there in about 5. Much love.